It is Friday, midday, and we got a football weekend here. What's up, everybody? Solo guy here. And if you're watching on YouTube, that's great. Hit that subscribe, what's going on here? Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the podcast, that's great. We appreciate that. 5-star review on Apple Podcast, and you can leave a question in that review for the mailbag. You can also email promo code ham@gmail.com. We are brought to you by Tito's Handmade Vodka. Whatever you're ordering this weekend, put some Tito's in it, whether it's a Tito's and ginger, Tito's maybe espresso martini, John Daly. That's a great, if you're hitting the golf course, if you're just hanging out watching some football, John Daly, little lemonade, little iced tea, little Tito's. That's the way to roll. All right. I'm going to dive into a few things here. Some what to watch for us after 49ers and Raiders finish their second joint practice, and a couple other things from other games that are of interest. We got 6 games today, Friday, if you're watching this live or listening to this on Friday, and then 6 games on Saturday, and then Chiefs, Saints, and Niners, Raiders on Sunday. So I just want to rattle through a few things, and then we can get to some reaction as well. Good to see a few of you here in the chat. And Ben says joint practice should be both of us. Where am I at? I think he's on a golf course in Tahoe right now. I was on a golf course yesterday. Let me tell you something real quick. It never occurred to me because I'd never witnessed a hole-in-one. But yesterday, shout out to Mike Samuels. We got a hole-in-one while I was playing bad golf. And I was very happy for him. But I realized on the 17th hole that my 100 on that scorecard was going to be framed in his office for the rest of his life. And our buddy Reggiani made a point to add my last name to it. So everyone would know when they said, Mike, nice hole-in-one. This is who shot 100 that day. Never thought of that, but now I'm aware of that. Okay, it's a few Niners things to hit. If you guys saw some of what I saw, I'm not in Vegas. Maybe some of you are. If you saw any of the snap counts from the joint practice, Brock Purdy took 26 passing reps, 39 reps, but he threw 26 passes. Trey Lance threw 2 passes. Sam Darnold threw 3 passes. Brandon Allen threw no passes. So I think that answers, not that there was any question. Kyle Shanahan made it clear. I predicted 2 weeks ago that we wouldn't see Brock Purdy in this preseason game. And I think those stats probably tell us we're not seeing Brock Purdy in this preseason game. By the time you listen to this, if you're watching it after the fact, you may already know the answer that's been said officially. But I think that tells us everything we need to know. So for all the talk about Purdy interceptions and is Purdy forcing the ball too much, we'll have to wait at least another week to see it in person. Hopefully he plays against Broncos. I hope he plays against the Broncos. I think he'll play against the Broncos. So looking forward to that. All right. A few things to watch for. Obviously, the returners. Ronnie Bell, Danny Gray is not a returner, but the hole left by Ray McLeod is a big thing to watch for this week. Deshaun Jameson may be returning. I've been saying for 2 weeks, because you watch so much quarterbacks, you watch a lot of receivers. And Danny Gray has at times been frustrated. I've said that a few times here, so I'm not going to go down, tell that whole story again. But I think they really need to get Danny Gray rolling a little bit in the preseason so they can establish a little bit of trust and a little bit of belief. And he can establish that he doesn't have to put so much pressure on himself. Every route run doesn't need to result in a 50-yard bomb to Danny Gray. And I think that starts now. I think that starts on Sunday. I think that starts with everybody, with Danny being able to take a breath and maybe not putting so much pressure on every single ball that comes his way. And hopefully that means settling down and catching more passes. So I think Danny Gray, he is at the top of my list of what to watch for on Sunday. Ronnie Bell is absolutely a part of that as well, right? He has had a really good camp. I think the last couple of weeks he's looked good. He hasn't got as many opportunities in team. Ray McLeod gets a lot of opportunities in team. But now he's going to get a chance to return, and he's going to get a chance to impact, that receiver room. So I think those two guys, I clump them kind of together. I think these games are really valuable for those two. And maybe they're valuable for Deshaun Jameson, whoever that returner is, Willie Snead, whatever. But I think we're at the point now where, if Danny Gray doesn't make an impact this year, then you kind of stop hoping for it. Doesn't mean it can't still happen. It's a crowded receiver room, but there's not a lot of space. Ray's injury gives him a little crack to maybe make some plays. And he's got to step into it. Somebody these guys have been given an opportunity now, and one of them has to step into it. You know, a lot of talk. Next thing to watch, a lot of talk about we got to watch Colton McKivitz. We got to watch Colton McKivitz. And I feel that way too. He's going up against Chandler Jones and Max Crosby. We got to watch Colton McKivitz. But Colton McKivitz is the right tackle. That's going to happen. It's done. To me, the guy I'm a little more interested in is Spencer Burford. What you'd like to see out of a guy in his position, you saw last year. Now you want to see him take another step, right? He had games where he'd get 54 snaps, and then the next week he'd get 31. He had a week where he'd get 25 snaps, and the next week he'd get 67. No more Brunskill here to run a rotation with him at guard. They could run a rotation at guard, I guess, with him and Matt Pryor, but you don't want John Feliciano, really, not Matt Pryor. But you don't want to do it. You want this guy to settle in and make things easy. And then, if you need to help Colton McKivitz, you could do that. So I think that's as critical or more critical than McKivitz. Is Burford about to step into truly a reliable starting guard for the 49ers? That's high on the list to watch. Jair Brown is high on my list to watch this week. Practice has not really been his opportunity to shine because they're really good safeties on this team, and you don't get to hit. So Jair Brown, I think, is going to have an opportunity this week and these next few weeks to make an impact and flash. He made a difficult catch on the interception, Sam Darnold's ball a couple days ago. So I got Jair Brown high on the list. Obvious, he's a third-round pick. They invested a lot in him. They should have high expectations for him. He's in a really good spot. He's in a spot where he's going to be able to get snaps on defense this year, but he's not the guy they're relying on to make all the plays. I mean, really, right now, at most, he is third. At best, he is third on the list of safeties they're relying on. He easily could be fourth with Odom and Gibson and Hufanga. So I think he's in a good spot. Like, he's in the kind of spot where you can be if you play safety and you can't be if you play quarterback, right? He gets to kind of just nibble a little bit, bite a little off, see how much he can chew, see his role grow, see his role decrease, and it's not a big deal, right? Drake Jackson a little bit in that position. Not a little bit. Drake Jackson was in that position last year, and now it's time for him to take a jump, right? All the stuff we say about what you can and can't do with Trey Lance and developing a quarterback because only one gets to play, you can do with Jair Brown. So there's not as much pressure on Jair. I think we've seen a couple of things. I said the other day, Dre Greenlaw is a very aggressive football player. He's a very aggressive practice player. Jair Brown has shown some of those tendencies when you just watch him in practice up close. You don't get to hit, but you can tell there is some physicality waiting to come out of him. When you watch him in training camp, it seems like it's difficult for him to not hit somebody. So how does that comes out kind of verbally? Dre Greenlaw doesn't really follow those rules. He just hits people anyway. But, I think that you can kind of feel it bubbling, I thought, watching Jair Brown kind of within him, and that he's just itching. So I'm looking forward to watching him and see if that, immediately translates. I'd expect, because you have such experience at that position, those other three guys are proven. Jair Brown should get a ton of snaps. Those other guys don't need really that many snaps when it comes to preseason games. So I think we'll get a lot of Jair Brown. And then, of course, the quarterbacks. A couple of things on both guys. Number one on Sam Darnold. And I've said this from the beginning, and now we're going to get to see it play out in person. The number one question, I've got one big question for all three of these quarterbacks, right? For Purdy, it's can he keep throwing touchdowns without throwing picks? Or can he throw enough touchdowns to overcome interceptions? Right? Will he protect the ball in the final black and white numbers like he did last year? Or will some of those turnover-worthy plays turn into picks? That's clearly the question on Purdy. The question on Lance, can he be consistent, right? Can he complete the layup throws, the price of admission throws, those zero throws, the zero throws on the PFF grading scale that the Niners excelled at last year? Jimmy was number one. Purdy was number two in yards per attempt in those throws, 6 yards. Can Trey do that stuff? That's for him. And for Sam, it's very simple. Can he get rid of the ball? Can he run the offense without holding on to the football? When you can't hit the quarterback, there's no way to really know. But I thought even in OTAs and sometimes in training camp, he's held the ball too long. This is, I think, the number one issue for Sam. When you look back at last year, Sam Darnold took more than 2.5 seconds to throw 71% of his dropbacks. That was number one in the NFL. He took 2.5 seconds to throw a larger percentage of his dropbacks than anybody else in the league. 71% of his dropbacks, 2.5 seconds or more. What happens when you hold the ball for 2.5 seconds? Well, for Sam, what happens when you hold the ball for 2.5 seconds or more? Your completion percentage dropped almost 20%. His completion percentage goes from 72% when he gets the ball out in 2.5 seconds or less to 54% when he holds the ball for 2.5 seconds or more. So 54%, 3/4 of the time he holds the ball in the range of time that results in him being basically a 50% passer. Can Kyle Shanahan fix that, or is that part of the problem for Sam that won't be able to be fixed? That's the number one question. That is the number one question. It has been the number one question for months, and it will be now the number one question on Sunday when it comes to Sam Darnold. So, yeah, he can make a layup throw. Yeah, he can throw a good deep ball. He's got a powerful arm. He's athletic. He's got untapped potential. Does he see it? And does he get the ball out? If the answer to that is no, if the ball doesn't come out, then he can't be the number 2 quarterback if you got Trey Lance sitting there. I don't think. So that's the question with Sam. And the question with Trey is complicated because the noise, right? The trade noise has picked up. Is it because it's real, or is it just because everyone's kind of regurgitating the thing? I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. But as I've said repeatedly, I would not trade Trey Lance, especially not for what you think you're going to get. So if he plays well, there's going to be 2 big conversations going on. One is going to be he can't be Sam Darnold's backup, / there's going to be this other little side one that's like, oh, should he be the starter? Maybe he'll get his chance, but you know, Brock Purdy won that job last year. And 2 is, well, he played so well. Can you trade him for something? Would the Raiders, John said this a long time ago. I thought it was a great point. If he plays well against the Raiders, would the Raiders suddenly be interested in him? So the layup throws, the simple throws, and how does he perform? I think seeing Trey Lance play accurately, consistently, I think seeing him play loose, like he is experiencing a lot in his young football life, from being the guy to losing that job to then at least coming back in thinking I'll be the backup, going through injuries, now having Darnold in there. And from what you watch in practice, I think he handles it really, really well. When you watch these guys, there is no sign of Trey kind of going off in his little side, or Sam and Brock or Brandon Allen. Like nobody, like they are all together. And I think Trey's got a big opportunity here. Do I think that Kyle Shanahan might be leaning to Sam Darnold? Yes, I do think he might be. But we haven't played a game yet. Trey can change all of that. Darnold's history to this point has been great prospect, great college player, great on paper, bad game player. Bad game player. So it's all a projection with him. So Trey's to this point has been, interesting, intriguing prospect, good in paper, no game player. So games for these guys are so critical. This whole thing, and we've talked about it, we've graded all these throws. Like the reason Brock is the starting quarterback and unquestioned the starting quarterback is because he played in games and played really well. Well, now we're going to get some games, and that can change for Trey, and that can certainly, it can go either way for Sam. I don't know what that's going to look like. But these guys are obviously at the top of the list of what is most exciting to watch this weekend. Couple other things. Packers and Bengals play Friday night. Jordan Love. Fascinating. I've been saying this last year, 5 throws in a game as a backup. I thought it looked good. Now it's his ship. We finally get to figure out, are Matt LaFleur and the Packers, a force to be reckoned with? Is Matt kind of like, is he going to be like McDaniel? Is he going to be like Kyle? Is he going to be like McVay? Are they going to elevate quarterbacks that are not superstar quarterbacks? Because that's what Mike McDaniel did last year. That's what McVay did with Goff. That's what Kyle's done repeatedly. Is LaFleur that guy? And that's a big deal because right now the NFC is obviously wide open. If Jordan Love is a franchise quarterback, then it changes the outlook of the NFC, which right now has a it's a barren wasteland of franchise quarterbacks. So you're not getting that answer tonight, but something to watch for. Colts and Bills Saturday. Anthony Richards is interesting. For those of you that watch CJ Stroud on Thursday night for the Texans, he looked like a rookie quarterback. But I think the Colts are fascinating because they might be bad. And the whole league is going to center a year from now around the top 2 picks in the draft next year. And if one of the top 2 teams in the draft have a quarterback already, so if the Texans are one of the top 2 picks, if the Colts are one of the top 2 picks, if the Panthers are one of the top 2 picks, then you got to watch out. You got to watch out for the Seahawks. You got to watch out for the Cardinals. These teams that need a franchise quarterback and will want to trade up for a franchise quarterback. The Rams, they won't have the picks, but it will be very interesting if the worst team or worst teams in the league this year have quarterbacks already, what teams step up. And you would figure it's likely to be an NFC team or two. What team will try and step up and trade for Caleb Williams and Drake May? So just something to watch for there. And then I think the game that is most intriguing to me outside of Niners Raiders this week is Friday night Steelers Bucks game, because that's the 49ers week 1 opponent. But the Steelers are really interesting. The Steelers had a ton of picks, some by trade, and they used them on immediate impact players potentially. Broderick Jones, they drafted with the 14th pick out of Georgia. Probably going to be starting at left tackle week 1 against Nick Bosa, maybe. A couple of maybes. We'll see. He's got to win the job, but that's how it slates at this point. The 32nd pick, which was the first pick of the second round because the Dolphins forfeited their pick, was Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. Is he going to be starting at cornerback for the Steelers? Is he going to be lining up against one of these 49ers receivers? Is he going to be trying to tackle Debo or McCaffrey in space, right? One of the reports the other day was he wasn't doing a great job tackling. We'll see. He hurt his ankle about a week ago. But if he plays tonight, and I think he's practiced since, Joey Porter Jr., they drafted a nose tackle out of Wisconsin with the 49th pick, Keanu Benton. He might start, and he's definitely going to play for the Steelers. And then the tight end, the 93rd pick, Darnell Washington out of Georgia. Some of the highlights have been really good in practice. Is he going to be a guy? The Niners right now have one of the things for them, I didn't mention it, but they got a lot of good linebackers. They got probably, and this happens repeatedly with them, too many linebackers. So Darnell Washington is going to be a big part of that game, you would think, potentially, week 1. And that makes the Steelers fun to watch because you think, those guys will all play today. So there you go. That's what to watch for on Sunday. Those are some of the big things to talk about probably Sunday. Do a quick little thing after the game. And then Monday, I think we'll do a podcast. So it's here. It's here. And there's more. We didn't list everything, but I wanted to keep something tight for Friday because I know your listening habits. So for those of you listening to the pod, this is the end. If you're watching the stream, it's not the end. I'm going to get to some questions here on the stream. But if you're listening to the pod, check out the YouTube channel for more content. And send us pictures of your Tito's. All right. For those of you on the YouTube stream, Crocky was in the chat. What's up, Crocky? Crocky went viral yesterday with a Raiders reporter. Saw those quotes. Although Crocky, you can go solo, and I'll always consume. All right. What's up with these interceptions? What's up with Purdy? Daniel, Purdy is not ready. I feel like Kyle is pressing him too much coming back from surgery. Play Trey. Purdy's ready. I said this after watching practice Tuesday. Physically, I think he's back. His throws look the same in terms of velocity, which is not what Darnold's and Trey Lance's throws look like. I think we've seen a guy, and I said this after the season last year, so this is not a reaction to training camp, who's got some playmaker Jones in his blood. And if you're going to be that guy, you also got to make a lot of positive plays. You got to throw touchdowns. If you're going to throw picks, you got to throw touchdowns. And, Brock threw a lot of touchdowns last year. So there's not a debate here. There is a conversation about what is it going to look like this year. That's absolutely fair. And, it's why I would not want to trade if I were Trey. And we'll see how Darnold looks. But I think 2 months from now, maybe Trey's in a really good spot. But right now, you'd love to read that Brock Purdy's slicing and dicing. Jimmy Garoppolo threw a lot of training camp interceptions, as I remember. He threw one today. Well, he got hospital ball today, apparently. Didn't see it, but Devontae Adams had to be helped off. But Jimmy Garoppolo used to throw a lot of those. Now, is Jimmy the standard for the 49ers? No. You want better than that. But we know that at least is good enough to get you the NFC Championship game because we've seen it multiple times. So I'm not, games. Trock Talks. That Sam Darnold to Willis throw was awesome. Rolling right and hit a 45-yard dime. Sammy Dimes looking good. Darnold, when you look at the numbers last year from a percentage standpoint, actually threw a pretty accurate deep ball. Again, the problem is how much does he have to run around in order to throw it? He does have some athletic skill. The pick he threw the other day was, Purdy and Trey have thrown picks over the middle of the field. The pick that Darnold threw the other day was a sideline throw that Jair Brown made a nice play on. It was an athletic play by Sam. But, to me, that's not the question with him. Damn it, Purdy regressing. I think it's far too early to say he's regressing. I even think regression sometimes as a word gets a little overused. I think it's more that, to me, regression happens after you've played a big sample size. Then we see you get worse. Brock has not played a big enough sample size, I don't think, to regress yet. He may play 17 games, and then we go, all right, now we've got a season and a half, or not even a season and a third or whatever. And now we see, okay, he's not a 13 touchdown. He's not a 26 touchdown, 8 interception guy. He's a 29 touchdown and 14 interception guy, right? That'll just be what he is. I don't think it'll mean regression. KP says, everyone else has Purdy with 3 interceptions, but Mayoko only has him for 1. Who's right? Well, I talked to Matt about how he charts. And one thing he said was, we were going back and forth about a play. And he said, hey, if it's a sack, I'll note sack. But if the guy threw the pass and it's a pick, then I will mark it as a pick. So I would have suggested, well, maybe he had sacks that other people didn't have. But I see what's happened here. Okay. So what you're reacting to is this, where Mayoko said 11 on 11, he threw a pick. He threw 1 interception in team. Mayoko also added, in addition to his 1 interception in 11 on 11, he had a couple other near picks and 2 more interceptions in the usually passer-friendly 7 on 7. So that's where your other interceptions came from. You had 1 in the 11 on 11 and 2 in, I like Mayoko's note, the usually passer-friendly 7 on 7. Purdy is a turnover machine. Them lucky drops from last year won't happen this year. It's been the case in practice. Well, we don't know if those lucky drops will or won't happen. But if you put the ball in harm's way, eventually it does come back to bite you. But as I keep saying, it's not, interceptions do not happen in a bubble, or they don't get judged in a bubble. They get judged relative to touchdowns. And Brock threw a lot of touchdowns last year. So does he throw less touchdowns and more picks? Right? It's all part of a kind of a sliding scale. If his picks go up, but his touchdowns stay high, then you're going to be able to live with that. If not, well, then not. But high touchdowns and high picks, that has not been the Kyle Shanahan formula for success this year, or so far, right? That has not been the Niners formula. Good defense, run game, field position, don't turn it over. That's been the formula. So do you run the risk if you go kind of big? Oh, more touchdowns, but more picks. Do you need more touchdowns? You scored a lot of points. Do you need more? Do you need a 45 touchdown quarterback? You don't. Niners have no problem scoring points. They blow people out. They had more. What was the stat? Was it 11 double-digit wins last year to lead the league? So they got no problem with that. So I understand the concern, right? You're not looking for a 45 touchdown guy. You're looking for a 32 touchdown guy. And you want 9, 11 picks, not 14, 16. So it's 100% something to watch. as I've said, my opinion on it is it doesn't mean he shouldn't start the season, but it's 100% the thing to watch. And it'd be the thing to watch whether he was throwing camp picks or not. Jimmy with the hospital ball. Yeah. TC, I'm going to talk about these interceptions by Purdy throwing, and everybody wants to overlook that and sweep it under the rug. We could keep saying the same thing in a circle. I don't think anyone's overlooking it. Mayoko just wrote it. He had 2 interceptions in passer-friendly situations. I don't think anybody's sweeping it under the rug. What I am saying, again, he threw touchdowns in games. He won games as the quarterback. He went to the NFC Championship game as the quarterback. If any other player did what he just did last year, like Trey Lance, we wouldn't be talking about whether or not he should be the starter. And it's not a real, here's the other thing. It's not a real conversation. It is not a real conversation whether he should be the starting quarterback right now. If that stuff happens in games, and this stuff is definitely an alert to all of us, is it going to happen in games? Then he's not the starter anymore. Kyle will bench him. Kyle will switch quarterbacks. He'll do it. Can we get Jimmy back? What if Garoppolo came back? What if there was like a Garoppolo for Lance trade? Could you imagine? He's very expensive. Astro says, I'm ready for Kirko next year. So am I. Yusuf says, I think he's throwing more picks than Jimmy. I heard Sam freezes on his second read. Ghost. Just get the ball out on the first read. You don't get to the second read. Randall. Sam Darnold has played now for 5 years. He ain't changing. If you don't know this by now, you're just plain dumb. I have an opinion on what he is, but I also have an opinion on what Kyle Shanahan quarterbacks are able to do. And if we did the reverse, quarterbacks don't get better when they've left Kyle. Matt Ryan in his best years. Kirk Cousins, went on to become more prolific, but I don't think it would have been things that he couldn't have done with Shanahan. So the reverse of that would be, could Sam Darnold have his best version of himself? Could. I mean, I'm open to it, but I'm pessimistic. As I've said, I'm intrigued. I'm interested. I'm pessimistic. But I don't think that makes anybody dumb for mid-20s quarterbacks to get a shot with Kyle Shanahan. Feels like Darnold puts the ball on the ground when he gets sacked a lot as well. And that is a problem. And that is a scouting report. Yeah, maybe you force the ball out of his hands quickly. He turns the ball over. He can throw a good deep ball to the safety. Trey has no confidence, says Astro. He needs a Pete Carroll type coach for reclamation. He needs snaps. Yeah. I think, what I said earlier about Danny Gray, it's tough if you feel like this play, this moment is the one I've got to make. It's all on this. But I will say, when I've watched Trey practice, I know we talked about a week or two ago, we had some kind of slapped his hands together after a missed throw. I don't feel like I'm watching a guy that's pressing for the most part. I know we did body language doctor on that one thing, but when I watch him throw the ball, I don't feel like he's pressing. I think he's playing loose. Running now is going to be like, these are going to, bullets are live. But I think Trey's playing loose. I don't think he looks like a guy that has no confidence. Yeah, I mean, Jim Harbaugh coming in and telling him he's the greatest quarterback he's ever seen and all that, maybe that would help him. Maybe Kyle does not build that up in guys, particularly in his situation. But Trey Lance has played like, 5 games in 4 years or something, going back to the canceled 2020 season, 2021, 22, 23, 4 years. He just has not played a lot of football. Why would anyone lean into Sam Darnold? Well, I think the Niners would do it because they liked him coming out of college and they think other people screwed him up. I mean, I'm not saying that's the truth. I'm just saying it's pretty easy to build the scenario where Kyle Shanahan might like him. Hugh asked, do you think Kyle might be leaning towards Sam as QB2? Because that's what the national media is saying. The national media has been constantly wrong about the Niners. Do I think he's leaning towards Sam? No, it's not because of what the national media is saying. It's because he brought him here on the first day of free agency. And then they brought Brandon Allen around, and they like Brandon Allen. Now, Trey's better than Brandon Allen, but I think it's pretty, you can reasonably connect dots that paint a picture that say they might be setting this up for it to be Purdy, Darnold, and Allen. I just forget about what anybody else says. When you have 4 quarterbacks, and one of them you signed on the first day of free agency, and I think you liked him coming out of the draft before you got Jimmy. Just those things make you think that they might like Sam Darnold and that he might be the number 2 quarterback. Now, the counter to that would be, no. I know it looks that way, but Brock was hurt and Trey was hurt, and they just had to play it safe and get Darnold in here and get Brandon Allen in here because they didn't know for sure that both those guys would be healthy. That might be that might also be, it might be innocent, and that might be it. But I think you can recognize that this is a possibility without relying on Florio or Eisen or whoever as the reason why, the rap sheet, on and on. I think if I just put those facts in front of you, you'd go, yeah, maybe that is what is going to happen. Maybe not. We're about to play the games. John B. Sam has not been good. He checks down all day and processes very slow. Trey has been easily better than Sam, so we need to stop the Sam will be QB2 nonsense. So I've been to all but 2 training camp practices and did not attend the 2 Raiders practices. Sam does check down a lot. And based on his gameplay, he does seem to process slowly. And as I said, he holds on to the ball too quickly. I don't think Trey has easily been better than Sam in the practices that I've watched. Now, I think Trey has more upside. Like if you told me you get 17 games of Trey Darnold, Trey Lance or Sam Darnold, what do you want to see right now? Pick. I'd say, give me 17 games of Trey Lance. But by the same token, I got to be fair. I don't think it's fair to characterize that Trey has easily been better than Sam when there have been some practice days he's been better. There have been multiple practice days where Sam's been better. As I've said multiple times, I actually do think based just on practice play, it's close between the two. Now, if we take a bunch of other things into consideration, some people could say they'd rather have Sam and others could say they'd rather have Trey. But based on training camp practices, neither one is blowing the other one away. Like I would lead in Trey Lance. To me, ties go to Trey Lance. Do ties go to Trey Lance or Sam Darnold for Kyle? If it's tied, that's the question. I know there are people that feel like Trey's been better. There are people that feel like Sam has been better. Those are less vocal people. Those are, I think there's this perception that like the media that covers the team thinks Sam has been better. I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what's been happening. So I don't know who we're arguing against when we have this conversation about which guy's been better. I think there is a Trey's been better category, and then looks like a competition category. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody's banging the table saying Sam's been better, but I don't think that's what's been happening. Clarence, I think Trey's issue is marrying that processing power to his changing physical traits, adjusting ball speed, ball placement. He knows where he wants to throw. His body's still adjusting. I mean, that's a good theory, right? Like, I do think he's looked better. I think the ball coming out of his hands has looked better this year. The short throws, there's still a problem with them. But if, let's say, he takes another stride, just like he's been taking strides, that can improve, right? Your touch on that ball can improve, especially for a guy who hasn't played a lot of game speed. And so all of a sudden in the moment with the real bullets, what happens sometimes is he tries to really get that ball there. And when he really tries to power the ball, that's when he loses a little bit of that spiral. That isn't always what's happening on some of these short throws, though. Some of these short throws are first read by design. It's not that he's getting to the third read and getting it out quickly, and he's missed those throws. So, um, yeah, but that can improve. Accuracy on touch short throws, that can improve. Trey had 2 throws in 11 versus 11. Yeah, and Darnold had 3. Brock is not going to play in this game. So they treated today like Brock's game day, and Trey and Sam are going to get more throws on Sunday. Sup, Fable? Hope I said that right. Yes, he is. Yeah, not like Jimmy was perfect on those balls. Boo. Oh, this is a good question. Why do Brock's errors get overlooked because of last year? It doesn't make sense. Let's just excuse all of his errors because of what he did last year. No one's excusing errors. It's not about excusing or not excusing. First of all, none of us get to put Brock in timeout. So it is very reasonable that if you play the way he played in games, you are the starter next year. Now, is there a level of play that he could be so bad that Kyle goes, oh my God, we can't do this? Maybe there is. I'm sure there is. Of course there is in camp. But I've watched him play. I haven't seen that level of play for him in training camp. Their interceptions are bad. We should be concerned about his interceptions. He's still the starter. All those things are legit. Like, there's no excusing his errors. It's not about excusing errors. Let's say there's a competition. The games are what matters the most, and he played really well in games. These other guys haven't played in games. So he's like, imagine walking into think about this. Walk into a locker room and tell the players, the quarterback that didn't lose a game last year threw a bunch of touchdowns, no picks, and you guys all love and you think he's tough as shit? We're replacing him because he threw another interception in practice. There's no way that flies. CJ says, I think Brock gets more grace than Trey ever got. I think games. He played in games, like in front of everybody against another team that could hit him. He played in games. I've said it again. If Trey did what Brock did last year, we'd be talking about signing him to a 10-year extension. Seriously. If Trey did what Brock did last year, or if Trey comes in this year and does what Brock did last year, he would get a massive contract extension. In part because he's the guy that got drafted so high, right? That you're so fired up on. $5 for Carlo to say, horrible day for the Niners. O-line got spanked. Purdy 4 picks. Lance only had 2 passes. Jimmy worked the first team defense. Is Purdy seeing ghost? First of all, it's phenomenal media use right there. Like, that's very good. I wasn't there. I didn't see it. And I've seen enough practice reports that don't match up with what I saw. I've seen stats that don't match up with my grades. So this is why we get to watch on Sunday. But thank you for the $5, Carlos. Seabass. He's getting more grace because he had the best rookie QB play known to man. Trey has as many snaps in his life as Brock had as a freshman. That's it. That's the deal. Well said. I'm just scrolling through here, you guys. Thank you for your comments. Trey Lance ain't going nowhere. Stop the cap. I hope not. Oh, Mike asks, what do you expect the Raiders preseason game split for Trey, Sam, and Allen to be? I don't know. I mean, I said the other day, I think my guess, just based on feel, maybe this news has been out since we started this, is that Trey starts. Just my guess. Maybe they each get a quarter and a half, and then Allen gets a quarter. Maybe they each get the half, and then Allen gets the second half, depending on what the starter situation is. I mean, they each get a quarter. I'd love to see him play a lot just because some of those snaps are going to go to Brock Purdy next week. But, wouldn't shock me if he goes kind of back and forth at times with them so they can play with different guys. But I think in the end, Brandon Allen ends up playing around a quarter, which means the other guys get a quarter and a half. Maybe it's possible Brandon Allen doesn't play at all based on his recent practice participation. Like these two guys, there was a practice early, remember, where Brandon Allen got kind of an equal number of reps. That has that has stopped, basically completely. That has stopped. So, I mean, I'd love to see him get each a half, or maybe like first quarter, second quarter alternate, third quarter, fourth quarter alternate. But I would think Brandon Allen plays a little bit in this game. It's a good. I mean, I'm not sure, Mike. That's a good question. A couple more here before we roll off on this Friday. Is the Taco Charlton hype real? Has Kasarik fixed him this quickly? I have a hard time believing the hype is real, but I can't deny that when I've watched him practice, it's looked good. But they got guys that need to step up because people are hurt. So Taco's a guy to watch this week, right? Like he does a lot of dancing around at practice, and he's been making plays. But I don't think Chris Kasarik seems like a magician. I don't think he can do it that quickly. We'll see. Be interesting. But that's definitely on the list. Jake Moody, 64-yard field goal coming during the game. I'll tell you, 60 is about, like, he's kicked a couple from distance, like 60 that have cleared with a little wind. So that's 64 would be, I'd hold my breath before that one. Guy, do you think teams should replace the starter after injury? I don't know. Is the next guy better? How long has the starter been the starter? Who's the next guy? If Brock had gotten hurt with 2 games to play and Trey had taken over, then maybe Trey got the job back. But that's not what happened. I remember, I'll say this. I don't think, the old story that you can't lose your job to injury. Remember, that was the whole debate with Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, and a lot of people were like, you shouldn't be able to lose your job to injury. I never quite understood that. But this is a different situation, right? Brock is back for the next game. So he didn't get replaced. It's, you just made me think, Kaiser Soze, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. What would have happened if Trey was healthy at the time of the NFC Championship game and came in and won that game and then went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl? Now you've got a real competition. Or maybe Trey's just the quarterback, right? I don't know. Would have been fascinating. But the short answer is I have no problem with a starter. If he gets hurt, somebody else steps up, takes that job. Like, let's say Ronnie Bell takes over. Ray is just better at returns. And Danny Gray is actually a more impactful receiver than Ray. I don't think these are the likely scenarios, but let's just say that's what happens. Then Ray doesn't get the snaps when he comes back. Simple as that, right? So, but that's not what happened here with the quarterbacks because Brock is back in time to be the starter again. Lambo, is it possible Niner fans are making too much out of mediocre quarterbacks? Yes, it is. It always is. Juano, Brandon Allen hasn't gotten snaps since Mike Silver's article. And actually, you're right. That does line up. That timeline does line up. Yeah, that timeline does line up. Thanks for finally covering the mark on that back wall. It was driving me nuts. Yeah, there's a wall cap on. I got to put a lamp in there, but I just capped it off because it was a hole. I put a hole in the wall when I pulled off the lamp. Got to figure something out. I got some stuff around here I got to put up. All right. That'll do it for today. I think the beauty is that Sunday we get a game, and then we get another game, then we get another game, and all these guys play. And Brock is going to start week 1, but beyond that, nothing is guaranteed, right? So if I'm Trey or Sam, I hope I put together good film Sunday, and I don't go anywhere. I don't want the end result of this to be Trey plays well and gets traded. I don't think that's in the interest of the 49ers. Unless they get like a first or second round pick. But even then, you better be damn sure that that's not a starting quarterback that you just traded. And if you are receiving a first or second round pick, somebody thinks that's a first round that's a starting quarterback that they just acquired. I think that'd be the wrong thing to do. But I know this, whatever happens on Sunday will lead us down one of those roads. Thanks for hanging, everybody. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Hit that like button on the way out the door. Definitely hit that like button on the way out the door. And holler later.